Africa is weak. That's one word we are underlining from a statement of PLO Lumumba, a Pan-Africanist.
And of course, Africa is weak, the weakest continent on earth.
African continent is one of the weakest continents in the world. It's true. I support that. I support that. Let's listen to this and then we talk about this.
When the European powers assembled in Berlin in 1884 through to 1885, the whole idea was to use the resources, both natural and human, of the African continent, so that the partition of Africa was one that was designed to benefit the European powers. The partition was arbitrary. If you look at the nation states that we now have, or is it states that we now have, with many nations in them, every other African country that we are talking about now is struggling to be a state. All of them, without exception, all of them. And this is what Pixley Kaisa Kasemo was saying. How will we regenerate this continent? And it's instructive that he was talking at a time when the entire continent of Africa was under colonization, excluding Liberia and Ethiopia, all of them. And therefore, when in 1945, Africans were represented in Manchester, Kwame Nkrumah was present at that meeting, Marcus Garvey was present at that meeting, Jomo Kenyatta was present at that meeting, Obafemi Awolowo was present at that meeting. Famously in 1949, Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah is saying, "Seek ye first the political kingdom, and the rest will be given unto you." And I dare say that the rest has never been given to us. And even if it is coming too slowly. But it is instructive that at that time, the spirit was about the continent of Africa. We were conscious, the leaders were conscious, that Africa decolonized without unity would remain weak. And of course, Africa is weak. The weakest continent on earth is this continent in which we are, our continent. So the struggle for independence was everywhere across the world, across the continent of Africa. So when on the 6th day of March, Ghana regained her independence as Ghana, it was then Gold Coast. I think the most eloquent and the most passionate warrior for Pan-Africanism was Nkrumah. He said on that day, and again later, that the independence of Ghana means nothing if the rest of Africa is not free. And he meant it, because when Ghana regained independence in 1957, 1 year later, Guinea regained her independence. A year later, the French Sudan, or what we now call Mali, regained her independence. They signed a pact to create what they call the African Union. They thought at that time that that would be Africa in her embryonic days. And they invited Patrice Emery Lumumba in 1961, but of course Emery Lumumba was then assassinated in the month of January 1961. And he won. This is one of the things that always stands out in my mind. that Nkrumah, of all leaders at that time, was able to see that if we were not united, we would go nowhere. So in 1958, he summons a meeting in Accra, Ghana, of the then independent African countries and tells them, if we don't unite now, the neo-colonialist is going to ensure that we remain disunited and we remain small, and they are going to ensure that the neo-colonial project continues. In 1961, on the first day of January, again in Casablanca, Morocco, he tells his audience, let us unite now before each one of our leaders begins to get used to power, because power is easy to get used to. And he warned the people then. But the colonial project was alive and well, because as they were meeting in Casablanca, Morocco, there was another group that was meeting in Monrovia in Liberia. That is how Africa started splitting. I pick out a speech from the leader of Central African Republic, David Dacko. David says, Central African Republic is so small that if we are not a part of an African Union, the French will come again. And they have come again. Mwalimu Nyerere of Tanzania says, we are not here in order to remind ourselves of how important unity is. We are here to talk about the unity of Africa. The host, Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, says, it is important for us to realize that we must make sacrifice for the future, because a disunited Africa will never realize our potential. But the most passionate speech again was that of Kwame Nkrumah. He tells them, let us not leave here without one government, without one army, without one currency, and without having chosen a capital. And I propose that the capital of the new Africa either be located in Bangui in Central African Republic, or Leopoldville, now Kinshasa, in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But I'm open to any other suggestion. And let us leave here once we have put together a council of foreign ministers in order to begin to work towards an African Union. That is Kwame Nkrumah. Nobody listened to him. That is Africa for you. So that the fears of Kwame Nkrumah that if we were not united, we would have problems, started haunting us. He said that if we are not united in the Pan-African spirit, what is going to happen is that the imperialist is going to control us. They are going to emphasize our ethnic differences. And they are going to ensure that we begin fighting amongst one another. And as we do so, they are going to exploit us. And they started. In January 1961, they assassinated Patrice Emery Lumumba, and Congo has never been the same again. In 1963, they assassinated Sylvanus Olympio in Togo, and Togo has never been the same again. Then there were coup d'etats. Kwame Nkrumah himself, in 1966, eliminated via coup d'etat all his writings, all his speeches banned, never to be read, never to be listened to until 1972, when Ignatius Kutu Acheampong rehabilitated him. Ahmed Ben Bella in Algeria, gone. In Nigeria, Nnamdi Azikiwe and Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, gone. In Mali, Modibo Keita, gone. In Chad, everywhere, coup d'etats. Here in Ethiopia, 1974, if I'm not wrong, coup d'etat and the emergence of the Derg regime. In East Africa, Uganda, coup d'etat, mutinies in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania in 1971. All orchestrated because we were disunited and we were weak. The predictions of our forefathers and founding mothers that disunited we would remain weak came true.
Welcome back. Africa is the weakest continent in the world. PLO LUMUMBA has described this statement. I just want to say few things. First of all, yes, it's true. Africa is one of the weakest continents, but it's not the poorest continent in the world. Underline this, weak and poor. We are the weakest continent in the world, but we are not the poorest continent in the world. We are the richest continent in the world. So as we discuss this, have those two things in mind, weak and poor. Now, the reason why we are weak is because we are not united. The reason why we are not united is because everyone is for himself. Every country is for herself. Is country a lady or a... Why do we always call a country her? She got independence. No, why not he? Okay, because Africa is the motherland. I get that. Now, Kwame Nkrumah wanted African to unite. We have this one military, one currency, one government. The capital city to be somewhere in Congo or Central Africa. But the leaders of Africa, some of the leaders did not want that. Everyone wanted to be in power. Every and each individual those days wanted to be the leader of a certain region, drunk with power. And that's where we got ourselves here. The mistakes they did back there, and the mistakes are still following us up to now. And as a Pan-African and as a youth of today, I see this. And sometimes I ask questions. Why are we living like this? But my questions are being answered by our forefathers. Did not want to unite. Our forefathers were fighting. And it's not that they didn't want, but the whites, the colonizer, the oppressor, had strategies to make sure that Africa will not unite. They made sure that they intervene and bring war or fights among the leaders of Africa. They terminated others from the face of the earth. They killed who and who. They killed this, they killed that. They made sure they terminated any leader who had the mind and has the knowledge of Africans uniting so that we can be strong. Now, we found ourselves being divided into 54 countries, into 54 regions, where everyone for himself. And that's how we became weak. You know, the more the cracks within ourselves, the more weaker we are. You know, these regions are like cracks. These borders are like cracks. The border between Uganda and Tanzania, Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Congo. The cracks everywhere. These borders that we have in Africa are like cracks that are making us weak, weaker, weakest. If we could fill these cracks, see how the bond could be strong. No free electrons roaming around. bond that we need as Africa. But somehow it's hard, maybe because with this mentality that Africans has, we could be fighting every now and then because everyone want to be a president from south, from north, from west, from east. Everyone is fighting to be the leader of Africa. I know that if we just have this mentality that we have, if somehow I think if the unity of Africa will be the best for us, and somehow I think that no, it just brings fights. Because if a country alone, like one country, like Kenya, we don't agree, we fight. Country like Congo, Rwanda, we fight because someone is being a leader and you want your person to be a leader. If we still have the mentality of leadership and being in power, drunk in power, and the mentality of my people, corruption and everything, even with that unity, we cannot succeed. But whatever I'm trying to say is, Africa is the weakest continent because of that is the thing we as Africans, we want. We ourselves have made Africa to be the weakest. We ourselves have made Africa to be used. And coming these days, Africa will be recolonized. PLO Lumumba said that. The words of PLO Lumumba pierce so deeply in my heart. The word of PLO Lumumba has a lot. For those who were not there, that time of Kwame Nkrumah, that time of Lumumba, now these are the words you need to hear. We have a long way to go. And we cannot live for bread alone because here in Africa, we live for food alone. Whenever you get food, whenever your country, you eat, you sleep, you're okay. But we are more than that. Look at the elections of USA, America. They don't campaign of you will get food, medical, roads. No, they are past that. They are campaigning of securing borders and everything. But we are still, all those years we got independence, with the big farms we have, with the good climate we have, resources we have, we are still campaigning of how we can get food in our country, how we can eradicate hunger, how we can build roads, how we can take our students to school, how we can get better health. We're still on that era. And we have everything. We have the minerals that we can make phones, technology, but we don't have any single company that are making phones in Kenya. Medicines. We don't own anything. That's why we are the weakest. That's why we are the weakest. Not poorest, but the weakest. I'm looking forward for this Pan-Africanism of nowadays to come up with strategies. We have communications. We have social media. We can communicate. A Pan-African in Congo, in Kenya, can communicate in Ghana. I have friends in Nigeria. Pan-Africans of those days, they were traveling by sea. They take like 30 days on sea just to take a message from Morocco to South Africa. But they succeeded. They were succeeding. They were around there. But because of the few puppets and few Africans who sold their brothers, they are the one who has caused all these problems up to now. I know there are some presidents of those time who sold their own brothers, who organized for the massacre of people, who organized for the terminating of fellow presidents who were speaking the mind of unity, who were speaking the message of unity. Can you imagine African countries, these are all countries, if we just could unite and be one African country? That could be great, man. I don't know. Seeing myself having no borders from Egypt to South Africa. Seeing myself traveling with my bicycle from Kenya all the way from Central Africa, from Chad, without borders. Yeah, so sweet. Having my friend in Senegal having problems, and I am moving from Kenya going to see my friend in Senegal. Is that sweet? Yeah? Doing business in Congo freely. Doing business in Ghana, selling cocoa. Me as a Kenyan going in Ghana and selling cocoa there, planting my cocoa, buying a land, and strong economy. First thing, we could have strong economy, strong military. Everything could be just strong. That's what Kwame Nkrumah wanted. And that's what PLO Lumumba is talking about. And that's what I want. I want unity of Africans, unity of black people. I want unity. And it's only by unity that we can freedom ourselves. We can free ourselves from this cage. It's only by unity that we can free ourselves from this neo-colonization. It's only by unity that we can free ourselves from the mouth of the angry tigers. Tell me what you think in the comment section about this topic. Is Africa the weakest continent? What is the way forward for Africans? What do you think we can do so that Africa can become at least strong? What do you think we can do to beat the neo-colonization? Because coming days, maybe we will be colonized too. We are weak, so weak. Tell me what you think in the comment section. I am the Kenyan Beast, of course. We are doing the African way. Peace.